It's Saturday night. You were thinking about maybe seeing Godzilla, but maybe it didn't have an IMAX like me in my theater. Maybe you're watching Kiss 50 and really believe they're going to retire college football. You're down because of Alabama beating Georgia. You just watched Collision. Well, forget about all of that because our guest tonight has not been here on Sports Wire Radio in months. And he's going to talk about what he's been up to here these past few months and some. And especially if you are a fan of WCE and Wrestling Championship Entertainment, as they just concluded yet another successful season. And he was a huge part of it. And he's going to tell us what we can look forward to going into 2024 with this man. He has been no stranger to Sportswire Radio over the past year and a half, but since it's been over 3 months at the last time he was on here, he has to get that introduction that he used to so everly get each and every month. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right to it. So, with that, wait for it. Further ado here on a Sports Report, the number one global sports show. He is the leader of the group they call Victor. They sometimes refer to him as the Psycho Wolf, but he's now tonight the new Messiah of backyard wrestling, the former RCW Underground Heavyweight Champion. His name is Nicholas Crenson. My friend, welcome home.
Thank you very much, Tom, and I will always enjoy your introductions because you have you put your own spin on it.
Well, that is totally true. I will say this. We'll get into obviously everything WC in a second, but as I always continue to tell people, now that we have our brand new website, sportswireradio.org, and we've certainly been updating that. We also put you on the calendar here tonight on our brand new website, and also we're celebrating 5 years next month of me doing this throughout my career, whether it's been on SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, certainly when we were on sportnarium.com/player, and now sportswireradio.org, even for a few people who remember us on sportsreportx.com. But what I am going to be remembered for, obviously, is the intros. It's not anything else, not the mutton chops, not the hair, not who's come on. It's the introductions. But obviously, a lot to talk about with you, my friend. And you certainly had a rather interesting season here in 2023, but I guess you can say you ended it with a lot of momentum, but we're going to always forever wonder what if, because you were supposed to get a crack back at that RCW Underground World Heavyweight Championship with your longtime nemesis, Dark Fire, and it didn't happen. And was this season for you ending on a what if?
Yeah, actually, it is ending on a what if, because it's what if. Originally we were supposed to do a show called Misfits and Misfortune,
yep.
And that show got rained out. Lovely Mother Nature.
Yeah, it was very tough. The last 2 months for WC.
Yeah,
here in New York, the weather was just awful until the season ended.
Yeah, pretty much. And then Highway to Hell happened in IMF, and me, Darkfire, Jovi, and a returning from retirement, Jonathan Pierce,
yep,
along with several other of the IMF crew, like Jason Myers, Freddie.
I saw him last night, Jason Myers. I got a chance to speak to him for a little bit last night.
Yeah, we all had a lovely little ladder match, and I know there was a couple other people in there, some kid from Illinois too, but we had that ladder match, and Jonathan Pierce came back with full fury, and he does. The thing with Pierce is he is the hardest hitting person I've ever met, And Darkfire got to learn that firsthand when he took a claymore to the side of the head and broke his nose.
Well, that's certainly been Darkfire's, I guess, kind of season. It's certainly been peaks and valleys for him, but we were supposed to see you guys finally square off at Fight or Fight 3 at the very least, Chapter 1 or 2, and it didn't happen. And, I know you got the 2 wins. We're going to recap those 2 wins, but certainly I would know that you would have loved to have reclaimed the RCW title, which you finally had won your first championship in nearly 17 years. And then you didn't get the match. That's why I say, going back to it, I feel like this was a what if for you, because
Big.
we're going to go into the entire winter now, getting ready for next season, wondering what if between you and Darkfire.
Well, that's kind of a what if. You see, if you've paid attention to Jovi's vlog recently, yeah, that contract for that match is still good. So, not sure when, but probably the beginning of next season. It will be me and Darkfire finally having our last man standing match.
Okay, we're going to get to that, and I have comments here, and I'll say hello to everybody, as we always do. I know people certainly want to engage in the conversation, and we'll certainly do that. But, I feel like that you're going to be thinking about this, I would imagine, for a good, 4 months or so. I think WC will expect, when Mother Nature cooperates, hopefully it's March, but let's say April. We're now in December, so let's say hypothetically 4 months from now, we get this match finally. We think we'll finally get it right 4 months from now, Nicholas Crenson. But that's a long time to think about something. That's a long time to ponder the what ifs. So, I mean, sure, the contract is good, and obviously it should be good, because you are the number 1 contender. It was your championship. You were defeated for it. I mean, so how are you going to take this, though, that you got to wait 4 months to get a crack at Darkfire, really, who's been, I would have to say, over the past year, your arch nemesis?
Yes, that's the frustrating thing is I've got to wait before I can get my hands on Darkfire. But that's a catch-22 with that, because he has to wait to get his hands on me.
But technically he's the incumbent, though. He's got the belt. I mean, you remember, we spoke a lot. We've known each other now a year and a half, right? We spoke so long on this show about you in the streak, you trying to finally end the drought. We compared it to sports teams that hadn't won Stanley Cups, World Series, NBA championships, Super Bowls. Then you finally reclaim this title. You defeat the resident rock star, Sean Jovi, and we're going to definitely get to Sean Jovi. A lot to talk about with him, a lot to discuss there. But then you lose it right afterwards. I think you had the title, a little over 2 months, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. You had the title for two and a half months. I mean, I'm sure somebody in WC's department, in terms of looking at records, will I'm sure correct me and give me the exact date. But you had worked so hard to get there to finally win the big one, and then you let it slip and you lose to Darkfire. And now, at the end of the day, though, he's the one with the gold. He's the incumbent, though. So I would think at the end of the day, you're the one that has to think about this more than he does.
So here's the funny thing. Like, yes, I am thinking about it night and day. I'm thinking about how am I going to get the title back. Problem is, Tom, if you know me,
I do know you.
I am always thinking of ways to mess with people.
You've done that. There's no question you are the king of mind games, and you've spoke a lot about Darkfire. So obviously, I'm not going to ask you on what you're going to do these next few months to Darkfire. We've certainly seen in the past in WCE that you've definitely done some things. But I guess then going back into it, obviously the stipulation was supposed to be that if you had lost this match, Vector was going to disband. But maybe something that's a feather in your cap, sir, that you've stopped Vector because you didn't lose anything. So now going into this offseason, you've got the likes of Tyler Ark, who you've really seemed to take it under your wing. And maybe that's something that is going to be motivation and help you these next few months, because you didn't lose Vector. So you've still got Vector in your side. And is that something maybe that's going to be kind of your feather in your cap here, that you didn't lose Vector? Whereas if you had the match to end the season with Darkfire, you would have wound up potentially, if you had lost to Darkfire, Vector would have disbanded. Talk to me about some of that.
So, yeah, that is the one caveat here, is that, you know, Vector would have disbanded if technically, it doesn't even have to be a loss. I just had, as long, well, yeah,
But we'll never know. It doesn't matter now. We'll never know. We're not going to know until April. I mean, obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about it. But
and that's the thing. Like, it's the season's biggest what if. What would have happened if me and Darkfire would have been able to have our last man standing match like we were scheduled to. Oh, and you mentioned numbers of how many days I held the RCW World Underground title for, Tom. I kind of am good at doing the numbers here. 64 days.
So, I was just about right on the money. So that was a little over 2 months. There you go. Listen, see, that tells you that's how long you held that title. So you held it, really, relatively speaking, especially in WCE history of late, very, very small time.
Right. I mean, let me just figure something out quick here, Tom. I am curious about something.
Okay, do that, because I got comments. So I'm going to let you be curious, because I have a lot of people that want to talk to you. It's been a while, sir. It's definitely been a while. And while we do that here, and we'll certainly get to comments in a second, I want people to follow Nicholas Crenson. You can do that here in a number of different places. First of all, check him out on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Nicholas Crenson. I remember to put the TikTok in there because people have been telling me I need to go on TikTok. So stay tuned for that. We'll see. Also, check out Nicholas Crenson on Instagram and Threads. He's on there as Endiku with all spaces in between each letter. So check him out there. And also support our very good friends in WCE on YouTube and Facebook at WCE Heat. And also check them out on their website, WCEHeat.com, where you'll keep up with all the information coming into WCE going into next season. Obviously, we're always excited about what WCE has to offer, and we'll have an announcement for WCE-related coverage coming up on the show here in a couple of weeks. So, Nicholas Crenson, have you been able to get that research there, that thing you were looking for?
Yes,
because a lot of people
I
want to
have.
right now. All right, what do you got for us?
Okay, I'm just about got it here. I'm curious about a couple things here.
Are you as curious as potentially those that might want to hear about Craven Rage and Sean Jovi in a little while? Because a lot
actually, this kind of has to do with Craven Rage and Sean Jovi in a little ways.
Well, give it to us here, because a lot of people are waiting. They're anxiously waiting. What do you have up your sleeve, sir? Because there's a lot of people that want to get into that, because Craven Rage, the Backyard Nightmare, the ruler of the yard, certainly one of the most controversial figures in Sportswire radio history, maybe even in the sports history, made his long-awaited return after over 3 months, where he shocked the wrestling world and announced that he's accepted the resident rock star, the Foundation's Sean Jovi's open challenge at the first ever IMF live show 2 weeks from today.
It's funny that you mentioned Craven and Sean Jovi.
Yes, I did.
Yes, my reign with the RCW World Underground Championship was short.
Yes, it was.
But you know who had a shorter reign?
Sean Jovi.
Well, nope.
Darkfire.
Nope.
He's a 5-time champ. Craven Rage.
Yes. He only held it for 28 days.
But didn't he just hold another title for 547? So kind of
that is true. That is true. He held it for 547 days, and he got cocky.
He definitely did. Now, I have some comments. Let me get to some people here. We're going to come back to that. But first of all, I want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Michael Blackheart, because obviously his father-in-law is Festus Davis, a referee in XCW, and he has a specific question for you, and I want to let him ask it so you can answer it. Nicholas, what is your one message in wrestling?
One message in wrestling.
What is your one message? Yep.
Simple. My one message in wrestling is that this is the greatest show. This is the greatest art form. This is the greatest performance. This is the greatest sport.
I don't disagree with that whatsoever. And Sean Jovi is just usurped right in there. I'm going to get to him. But I actually do want to get to him for good reason. If I could plug something real quick on behalf of Sean Jovi, he has started actually a new backyard wrestling or just wrestling Discord page in general.
Yes.
And if you'd like to join that, you'd like to be able to connect with other people, whether you're a fan, whether you're a wrestler, whether you're just curious, you watch our shows here on Sportswire, please go there. That is the link below. So if I promised Sean Jovi last night, I would plug it. So if you're not a part of this channel, go out and support it because it's for really for anybody, whether you're a backyard, a pro, an indie, underground, semi-pro, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Taylor Swift, Napoleon, it doesn't matter. Join it. Support Sean Jovi. Support this good cause here. So make sure you do that.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking at the chat too as we're talking here, Tom. And there's
Yes, sir.
another thing that Mr. Blackheart said. He said the length of the reign doesn't matter; it is the defenses, and that is very true.
So what do you make of that then? Before I get to more comments, what's your take on that then?
The length of the reign is really null and void. It's how good for a champion. What builds up the title are the defenses and how many quality matches you have. You know, Craven has had good matches. He's also had horrible matches with people.
I'm not going to get into those. You can obviously decide for yourself who those clunkers were and who those opponents were.
California.
No comment. No comments.
But you know, as you know, he had a lot of good reigns or good defenses in his reign, but so did James Marshall with the interstate title.
Well, I'll tell you this about Marshall. Marshall was the measuring stick in this company. Marshall was the one people wanted to wrestle. Omen Black wanted to wrestle James Marshall. Craven Rage was basically wrestling. It was kind of a joke we would make here, to be honest. It was a joke that we would basically talk about Craven Rage's opponents. And it was almost kind of like he was like fodder in a way.
Mm-hmm. And you notice during all this time, what's the one person that Craven hasn't faced since he won the belt? When he won the All Out belt?
Nicholas Crenson? But he doesn't have the belt anymore, though, sir.
Oh, I know. But eventually...
I'm sure you're well aware of it. I'm sure a lot of people in the world are well aware of it. But, you know, let me get to some comments here. And Michael wants to say, if Tom's favorite, guess what? We only have... I'm not sure, Michael.
I wonder... I think he meant to say we're only halfway there.
Oh, for Bon Jovi. That's obviously... Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. I'm trying to think which one. What was that song? Not Wanted Dead or Alive. It was the
Living on a Prayer.
Living on a Prayer. There you go. Yeah. But let me get to some comments here because I want to let people say hello. Adonis Felios, evening, Tom and Mr. Crenson. How are you doing, sir? I want to say hello to my buddy who's always here at 2:54 p.m. in Australia, Mr. Ace Reed of the Wired Up podcast, Backyard Wrestling Down Under, who is hoping. They are hoping to finally start their season, hoping to start their tournament. I think Ace had a big update on Instagram. We'll see if they get there. Thank you for tuning in.
I might have to check this out.
Yes, they're down under in Australia. They're hoping to start their own thing out there, and they've been kind of maligned by some issues. But Ace is saying they're finally going to get there. Maybe they're more than halfway there. They're definitely not living on a prayer when it comes to getting there. But it was funny. I was trying to make people laugh.
Oh, man.
This individual, you may or may not know, says Evening Crenson. We'll certainly talk about him if it's that individual. Skulls, poor Skulls, by the way, speaking of the weather, Mother Nature robs Skulls at Misfits and Misfortune. Yeah, the weather, unfortunately, for WC those last several weeks just, didn't work out. It just did not work out there. So, do you want to see Skulls back in WC? He says he's not done just now. Do you want to see that?
I don't make the decisions. If he wants to come back, he can come back.
That's up to Mark Packer then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let me come back to Skulls. I do have some more comments, and I'm going to get to those in a second from somebody else we just mentioned. But let me go to Skulls. Nicholas Crenson, not Crimson. You're thinking of the Crimson Tide in football. I will be watching you closely until the church bell rings. No more. Well, we've got a whole season in the off season to think about that, Skull. So you can certainly stay tuned. And I do want to get to somebody that made his long awaited return to Sportswire Radio yesterday. And we are talking about none other than the backyard nightmare, the once ruler of the yard who answered the call of the open challenge to Sean Jovi, and that is Mr. Craven Raid. Would you like me to play the comments here from Mr. Rage, sir? Would you like to hear what Mr. Rage has to say for those that are listening and watching? Okay, well, Nicholas Crenson, I'm going to just go with it then. Well, Mr. Nicholas Crenson, the so-called self-proclaimed new messiah. I truly, really hope that you have a plan because you talk about my title reign, especially the RCW title and the longest reigning. Nicholas Crenson, the reason why I didn't face you while I had the All-Out Championship is because you weren't on my level. I mashed you to get to the title. What's your response to all that, sir?
Yes, you did. You did smash me to get that title, Craven. But a long time has passed between that moment and now. And you've gotten a little bit weak, boy.
I want to ask you about that if you don't mind. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to the big wins. I'm going to come back to the momentum. I want to come back to that because we saw Craven Rage back on Sportswire. We didn't think he was coming back to the show. It was, in a way, it was kind of like CM Punk and Raw. When we saw Punk show up at Survivor Series and Raw, we saw Rage come back to Sportswire. A lot of people that are fans of this show and a lot of people in the know thought Craven Rage was finished with Sportswire Radio. But a lot of people looked at Craven Rage, and even though he was this backyard nightmare and this ruler of the yard who was champion for almost 2 years, a lot of people in this sport, especially people who even were on this show yesterday, thought that Craven Rage was a punchline. They thought that he was a joke. They thought that really the title that he held, he really wasn't up to par and standards. I mean, did you agree with all of that? How everybody over these past several months since Craven Rage had disappeared from Sportswire Radio, how wrestlers and after wrestler had kind of basically piled on Craven Rage, it almost as if he was a joke.
So here's the way to sum up Craven Rage's title reign as the All-Out Champion, and it's kind of a running joke on Copper Dragon when it comes to Craven Rage matches. It's not a Craven Rage match without a low blow. And you know what? I'm not knocking him for using low blows and all the dirty tactics that he used, because you got to do what you got to do to keep a title. The problem is he got cocky. He got too cocky for his own ability.
Because people, I think, and he himself, he bought into it. He bought into it. He bought into the fact that every single WC match he defended the all-out titles, there would always be a way that he would find a way to retain the title. It was almost as if we were watching reruns. It was over and over reruns. It was almost like, okay, I turn on WC on YouTube at WC Heat. I go to WCHeat.com, go to Facebook at WC Heat, and Craven Rage, it's the same outcome. His opponent gets some offense in. They're this close. They're right there. And then Craven Rage finds a way. The referee gets hit or distracted or something happens with Mark Packer. And then it's usual 1, 2, 3. Craven Rage wins. And then Craven Rage beats up his opponent afterwards and proclaims he's the greatest. And it was the same show we were watching over and over and over.
You know what's the sad thing about it? Is he didn't have to do that when he beat me for it.
Yeah.
He didn't have to. He became desperate over time, and because I know what it was. Like I said, he only held the RCW title for 28 days before he
held it for just not even a month. That's not even
a month. So he wanted to make sure that he kept that belt as long as humanly possible, and it worked for a while.
It works, but let me ask you a follow-up question. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. You tell me your thoughts. WCE certainly grew, right? There's no question that this company in the past year and a half that we've watched, we've covered WCE, we mentioned WCE even when talent for whatever reason weren't coming on here. But do you think it's a fair statement for me to say that WCE could have grew even further to even bigger leaps and bounds if Craven Rage wasn't the all-out champion? Did Craven Rage hold WCE back from further success?
I don't really know, because here's the thing, like, as like I said, as up and down as his reign was, he has had some of the best matches in WC over the past couple years.
He did. No, he did. Listen, there were moments. I tell you what, there were moments that he did have some great matches. I don't want to say that he didn't have every single match was a clunker, but there were matches that he did have great competition. But oftentimes, more than not, his championship reign was kind of it was a punchline. I mean, there are other people here in other states. I don't want to mention their names, but I'll mention the states: Michigan, Indiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Iowa, and they were having matches that people really wanted to hear on this program. And his matches, people looked at it and it was kind of like Saturday morning cartoon reruns.
That is one of the problems with a long reign, is that after a while it does.
We're standing with Roman Reigns right now. Listen, Roman Reigns, people, when was the last time we saw him? And people look at it, but with Craven Rage, he's not Roman Reigns. He tried. Listen, we saw one guy in Tennessee try to be that, and he's no more. I mean, there was this one guy. Let's break the fourth wall. His name was Ledger Shane. He disappeared. Couldn't handle it. He, like Craven, in fact, Craven Rage just edged him out. And runs as champion. Ledger Shade had 500 days. They had the celebration in Tennessee. And then right afterwards, couldn't handle the pressure. Craven Rage just nudged him out. That's the point.
So here's the other thing that I find beautiful about this whole thing with Craven is I said a long time ago that he was like Icarus. He was getting too close to the sun. And it's more of a poetic sense of karma, wouldn't you think, is Kodak Kid was the one to beat him.
Well, I'm going to get to something about Kodak
But the
Kid.
most brilliant thing, and he's going to have to live with this, Craven didn't just lose the WCE All-Out Championship. He gave it up.
We saw him tap out. We saw him give up. Who would have thought the unconscionable? It almost proved, Nicholas Crenson, you were right. It certainly proved somebody who was on here who says it's his show week after week on Sportswire, month after month, Mr. Omen Black. So it proved in a lot of ways that maybe that's the case. I have some comments. Let me get to them here. First of all, Skulls wants to say Craven thought he was untouchable. Well, he's not no more. But Mr. Rage wants to say, well, if you think I've got weak, oh no, I've got better, and now the real game to become. So, I do want to ask you in a second. I really do want to come back to you. There's a lot to talk about. So, we are here with Nicholas Crenson, the new Messiah, the leader of Vector here. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, and the owner of Sportswire Radio, the /1 global radio station. And if you want to check us out in past, present, and future WCE shows, you can do that anytime on our YouTube channel here at youtube.com/Sportswire Radio 6579 streams. You can also check us out on our new website at sportswireradio.org. We're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content and also check us out on our brand new blog, Sportswire Radio, also on sportswireradio.org. We put you on the calendar for you being on today. But, I want to ask you, though, in the fact that, okay, we saw Craven Rage, and he talked about the fact we're going to see this new Craven Rage in 2 weeks from now. We're going to see Craven Rage be different. And he's now defending WCE from Sean Jovi, who's now the Foundation's Sean Jovi. We saw him. Sure, we love Jovi. Jovi's the rock star. Jovi's got it going on. Great. But he was here last night saying the Foundation were his brothers. He was the guy with the foundation shirt on last night. And Craven Rage, of all people, was saying he answered that challenge last night on this show to try to take that interstate openweight title from the resident rock star 2 weeks from today at the first ever IMF live show, Winter Clash, for WC's honor. What do you make of all that?
He is the last person who defends WCE's honor.
But Sean Jovi was the one with the foundation shirt on yesterday.
Doesn't matter. Jovi is foundation, but he is WCE as well. He's IMF. He is. I will give this to Sean Jovi. He is a warrior. He's not just a resident rock star. He's a rock star warrior. And I will say that because when push comes to shove, Jovi is willing to dig down deep and put everything into his matches and everything to fight. Even in defeat, he is an honorable man. And I'll give him that. And the foundation, him being the foundation, is actually kind of interesting because I said a while back that Soulja, by the end of everything, Jovi is going to thank Soulja GP. And the reason why I said that is the foundation can help bring something out. He has all the potential in the world. He is the WCE Interstate Openweight Champion. But there's a little something missing. And now he's with the foundation. And he is going to be defending the WCE Interstate Openweight Championship at Winter Clash against Craven Rage. And I'm not sure what kind of match you're going to have, but he's going to make Craven walk the King's Road.
Well, I'll tell you what. I have a feeling between now and the 16th of December on Sportswire Radio, we'll probably talk about this, and we'll probably have an announcement on that. So I will get to a follow-up about you on that. But I first of all want to say hello to somebody that is tuned in from the friendly confines of Brooklyn, New York. Her name is Zena. She is a huge fan of Nicholas Crenson. She's a huge fan of WCEs. She watches all the WCE content, and she's clearly in the right place because she knows good looks when she sees them when it comes to me. And she certainly knows why she really, really gets so fired up watching us here on Sportswire. And it really, her day doesn't go by without wanting to watch us here on Sportswire. So I want to thank this beautiful woman for tuning in. But, I will get to comments in a second. But I want to ask you, though, do you take credit in A, Sean Jovi's success, and B, Craven Rage's demise?
No. Here's the thing. I'm not the one behind Jovi's success, and I'm not the one, behind Craven's demise.
You pushed him. Remember who turned it on when you guys, the first time WC came to IMF? It was you. You said here on this show for months about Craven Rage. And in fact, one of your promos on WC Heat's YouTube page, you called Craven Rage a word we can't say because I'll get kicked off the FCC air. You called him a D-bag.
He is. But here's the thing. I can only say that I pushed Jovi to become better, but I can't take the credit because honestly, at the end of the day, same with Craven. At the end of the day, it's all on them.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair play. I give you that much. Let me get to a few more comments here. We have a lot to talk about. Want to say hello to my buddy Ron. How you doing, Ron? I hope you are doing well out there and your weekend is going well. Sean Jovi, though, wants to say this. I'm not just WC or IMF's rock star. I'm the resident rock star of all wrestling. Bay. You might be. You very well could be. But the facts are, you could say, though, that Sean Jovi is not WCE and Craven Rage is trying to take that Interstate Openweight Championship back for WCE. And it was Craven Rage who talked a lot about Sean Jovi being in the foundation last night and talking about the fact that he's not WCE. And also, Craven Rage also wants to point out, remember, I destroyed your James Marshall, a person who you could never be. Well, technically, you did get victories over him, though. You technically did get victories when we had the the Iron Man match, we definitely did get some wins there in the amount of pinfalls. But
plus the last man, one of the last man standing matches I won was against James Marshall.
so I guess, but the point is that he's trying to say he's got something over you, but we'll have to see about that. But let's come into the current with you. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about, and I have no doubt that Mr. Rage and Mr. Jovi, they're going to come back onto Sportswire real soon. I have another announcement about somebody else Mr. Rage might be friends with, you might say. It's going to be coming back onto Sportswire. Wink and a nod there. But you did end the season, though, I guess you could say, with momentum. You beat Ray Uso in his debut match, and you beat Drake Silverwolf. You beat him. You beat him. You got wins over them. I mean, do you feel like that you go into the offseason with momentum, with back-to-back wins? And,
I mean, in the terms of wins, yes, but really, those two matches were the easiest matches I've ever done.
Well, the Ray Uso one, I have to say, it was the elbow heard round the world.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I am. Here's the thing about me is if you've ever those who have watched my stuff, you notice that I tend to always mix it up with what I can win with.
Well, I think you kind of like I think with Ray, at least, he did the splash off the top rope, and we were kind of like, oh my God, is Crenson going to lose this one? And then maybe you rope-a-doped him because right afterwards you put him away rather seamlessly. So maybe there was the mind games that you were playing again there, sir.
Yeah, and plus, I know he's paying tribute to his family, but Ray, you're not going to get anybody with that.
Is he actually related to somebody in the bloodline? I think that was kind of the talk on the announce team there. That was kind of commentating it.
I think he mentioned something about that. I'm not too certain though.
Good point. So you feel no momentum though? You have no momentum.
Okay. I feel I have somewhat momentum just for the wins, but like I said, those were two of my easiest matches to date.
I would say they were I would say this. They were certainly two of your quicker matches that I've seen in your career. I mean, what was the Ray one? 3 minutes, and the Silverwolf one was like what? Really 7 minutes, and it was kind of like after the first 3 minutes, it was like, when are you going to put this guy away? Pretty much, it was almost like you remember when Homer in The Simpsons was a boxer, and he put like all those like boxcar Ira.
Yes.
And it was almost like Mo was it was Homer's trainer, and it was almost I put him away, and like Homer sits there with the one punch. It was almost like you with Silverwolf and Oos. Not to put them down, but that's kind of how I felt watching those matches.
But honestly, I can go into a match with or without momentum. It doesn't matter. I don't really take much consideration into the previous matches in some senses. But having 2 wins is good going into next season, going into that rematch with Darkfire. And
because remember, you got the moment. Look at it this way: you got 2 wins, 2 recent wins. He hasn't wrestled now in a while. He's the one. Maybe it's to the point that maybe you have a point in that he's the one that has to solve now because he won't be able to wrestle now for months. He's got to think about this. You at least got a couple of wins under your belt that can say, you know what, you feel good despite against who they were. Win's a win in this sport. We made the comparison a couple of days ago on Sportswire, where sometimes if you're a football team and you go into the off season and you win at least your last couple of games, maybe you didn't make the playoffs, but you won those games. You think about those games and it gives you momentum going into next season. And for you, maybe that's the case, that you've got that momentum in a way, kind of like a football team going into next season, that you're poised to reclaim where you want to be. And that's that RCW World Underground title.
That's just step one. That's just one thing I want to be.
What do you mean?
Come on. The RCW World Underground title. That's just the start.
Just the start. Just the start. Just the start. Interesting. Well, okay. I mean, there's something else you want to say for the audience before I get to some more comments, or is there something you want to hold back? Is there something else you want to add or elaborate? I mean, we have all off season, so if you want to hold that thought, I mean, I can get to some more comments here. And Craven Rage here, the backyard nightmare, the once ruler of the yard in the sport, says, I'm definitely going to make Sean Jovi Craven's. It's the same old Craven to me.
Oh man,
Craven's been saying that stuff since 2022.
Have you ever? I almost want to say. I almost want to make either a Chappelle Show reference or a reference to the movie Snatch. But what's that one thing? Oh, well, Chappelle Show. I would say when keeping it real goes wrong.
Oh yeah,
keep it real, y'all. And then the second is actually no, that wouldn't fit him. That more fit like Darkfire's the movie Snatch and the one guy who just won't die.
Yeah.
But you know, you can, Craven, you can talk your game all you want. Doesn't make it true until you actually do it.
Listen, you could also say you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? That's certainly something that you could say here. Let me get to several more comments here. I guess I'll bring it up here just for fun. This is really a question for management, not your call. But would you ever want a match with Skulls? This is really more about Mark Packer here, I think, more than anybody else, because you're basically contractually obligated right now to reclaim your RCW title against Darkfire. So you're really right now only should be thinking about in WCE, you should only be thinking about Darkfire. So right now you're contractually locked in for Darkfire. So I don't know if that's a question you could contractually answer. Maybe that's the way I would put it.
Smatchily, Skulls, someday maybe. Problem is, buddy, I see you going down Wayne Brady style.
Well, I'm going to say no comment on that. And obviously, the lovely Xena there is listening to that and saying definitely no comment on that. Although she certainly might like looking at my mutton chops and my hair, but that's here nor there. I know it's certainly making her heart weak there a little bit, but that is here nor there. Let me get to some more comments, though. Sean Jovi likes to say, grammar hits hard, but I hit harder. Interesting. Very interesting there. Nicholas Crenson, I said I gave up. Well, who gave up the RCW title? And also by tapping out the schoolgirl that you are, Nicholas Crenson, you may have your rematch against Darkfire, who made you tap out like the little fill-in-the-blank so-called schoolgirl. Well, you know what? Since we're talking about people tapping out, right? Now, could I bring up an announcement? Maybe I could remind Craven Rage about something. Would you think that would be good now for the audience that I could remind Mr. Rage that on December the 19th live, speaking of people who made Mr. Rage tap out, let's say, who did a Rage Against the Machine, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on all Sportswire radio platforms, including sportswireradio.org. Also YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579 backspace streams. Our brand new all-out champion, Kodak Kid, the picture of perfection, returns live to give his state of the nation, his state of the WC nation in his first address as the WC All-Out Champion right before Christmas, right before New Year, right in the middle of Hanukkah, all those holidays, Kwanzaa, Three Kings Day, forget about all of them. All those plans need to be put aside because Kodak Kid is going to address the Sportswire Radio Nation and give his first words as WC champion December the 19th, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That is definitely going to be one that I'm sure you're going to be tuning in because you called it eventually that Craven Rage was going to go down like a Rage Against the Machine.
And yes, Craven, Darkfire made me tap out. Have you ever been in a sharpshooter or a scorpion deathlock before, kid?
Well,
or Mr. Rage, I should say, because here's the thing, Craven. Anybody can make anybody tap out. And I'm not going to discount Darkfire. Yes, he cashed in after I was done with the match. So what? He made me tap.
But doesn't that make you feel a little, in your case, unlike Mr. Rage's case, Doesn't that make you, though, feel like in a way that you really still should be champion? Because if you think about it, Darkfire, if it was one-on-one without him cashing in the golden ticket, that you would have really, you probably are right now still with us as the RCW champion.
That is the biggest what if, but I will also give Darkfire this. He was smart. He used the ticket like you should.
But as a man, though, wouldn't you, especially like yourself, a veteran who's been in this sport a long time, a veteran who fought so hard to get this championship back that it took nearly 17 years to win a major singles championship. Don't you think, though, as a man, that one-on-one, he did that? Sure, maybe it was the smart thing to do, but the facts are is that he knew he couldn't beat you in a one-on-one match straight up without some way that he could cash in. Isn't that a fair statement for me to make, sir?
You could make that statement, but you could also say this. You know how rare it is to get a one-on-one title shot, even with something like a golden ticket. And you know what? I could, he could have done it fair and square, and I could have pulled the rug right out of him. But he was smart. And I'll give him that. Darkfire has learned a lot over these past couple of years. He was smarter than Dash Andrews. He understood one thing is that title shots don't come that often. And when you have a guaranteed one, you're going to use it as soon as possible. You're going to use it when the right moment hits. I would have done the same thing.
Okay, if you say so. All right, fair enough here. But let's get to some more comments because people want to talk, and especially the WCE locker room. Jovi wants to say prior comments on Graham were directed at Craven. No one is ready to walk Jovi's road. Jovi has certainly walked an interesting road in his season. There was no question that Jovi had the best season of his career. I will say this much about the Resident Rockstar, whether you want to claim him as WCE, IMF, Wrestling's Resident Rockstar, whatever you want to say, he had the best season of anybody in 2023. What he did, what he put his body through, what he did in traveling. And now that in his long, well-traveled, well-respected career, wrestling in his first live show 2 weeks from today, got to give it up to the Resident Rockstar, Sean Jovi. That's why also, one more time, we want to make sure people join his Discord channel, which I'm going to put that link up here right below. You want to say something before I get to more comments?
Honestly, if I will say, Jovi is he's improved so much over these past few years.
His body has improved, his movement in the ring, his preparation. I mean, Jovi, to me, he's really one of those guys that in a lot of ways is rare, that at this length of his career, at his age, to have been able to improve this much. Very few people in this game, whether you're in the yard, the underground, semi-pro, pro, indie, whatever you might want to be, did what he did.
Easily, and I'm gonna be a little biased, but easily, if you look at the top 5 matches of WCE this year, practically all of them are probably a Sean Jovi match.
I was gonna say I would have said at the very least 4 of them. I would have said at the very least 4.
Him and James Marshall from Resident Occasion, where he won the title.
Yep, the August show. Yep.
Him and me.
Oh, well, we spoke quite
both of our matches.
Him
Three Doors Down with Soulja. I'm trying to think of any other ones he had this year.
Didn't he have? Oh, yeah, even the match he had with Prince Charles was a good match.
Yeah, the Prince Charles match was really good. Like, Sean Jovi is probably one of the best big men in wrestling.
Well, nobody does a cannonball like Jovi. Nobody.
Oh, God, no.
I watch cannonballs from all over the place, and I know the lovely Xena likes those cannonballs, but, certainly I watch wrestlers do cannonballs in different states, different places, and Jovi, I have to say, he might have the best of them.
Yes, it is. And the fact it's one of the scariest moves to be on the receiving end of.
Absolutely, because you have to make sure that you tuck yourself in, that you don't get, certainly some real damage there.
And it's, he does things that big men should not be able to do.
And he even goes off the top rope, too. Jovi this year we saw go off the top rope. I mean, Jovi was I agree with you. Listen, Jovi, no matter what, it's going to be a great match. Jovi and Craven Rage for the WCE Interstate Openweight Challenge at the first ever IMF live show called Winter Clash. It's going to take place 2 weeks from today. You can find out more information on that IMF Wrestling 666 on YouTube, IMF_Wrestling on Instagram, also Iowa Midwest Federation Wrestling on Facebook. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling here, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. If you want to support us here on Sportswire Radio, you can always check us out here on a number of different ways. I have a new blog here on Tumblr at Sportswire Radio. Our website here, as I stated once again here. Yep, we got a lot of new places for you. Sportswireradio.org, where Nicholas Crenson is in the events calendar. Nicholas Crenson is listed here for him coming back to Sportswire after a 3-month delay where we missed him. Certainly, he's back home, so you can check us out. Also, if you have a podcast, if you want to play music, if you have any requests, you can do that here via the Listen Live or the Watch Now buttons. Who designed the website? The guy you're looking at right here. So we took care of all that. We also have a Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, which we're inducting another person in that Hall of Fame this Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. British Standard Time, with a guy you might have heard of if you're a fan of wrestling called Jumpin' Dean Allmark, Dino, who, by the way, trained somebody you might know who's the AEW Women's World Champion, Timeless Tony Storm. And on top of that, Dean Allmark has wrestled in France, Italy, Japan, and in 2004 wrestled for a little old company called Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling. Dean Allmark is back for a second time to get his rightful place into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. British Standard Time on all Sportswire Radio platforms. We also have coverage coming up here Monday night with Angel Santiago, the TF Crew World Champion. He's here, I believe, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. You're not going to want to miss this one. We might even have some coverage coming up tomorrow. Stay tuned for details, because at this point, I've been going every day on Sportswire, and I kind of think I might want to go live tomorrow. So stay tuned for a special announcement on that. Also, Tuesday night, I'm back with Big Tex of Dominating Breakout Wrestling. They have nearly 3,500 subscribers on YouTube. They just had their last show, Danger Zone, a couple of weeks ago. Big Tex is a big part of things there in DBW. He's going to talk about today about 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Across the road from Wisconsin and Indiana, we've got at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, Blackheart, who does the play-by-play for XCW Shelbyville. He's going to talk about the season that was, his decorated career. He retired at SummerMania. Blackheart's going to get into all of that here and some. We are here right now on Sportswire Radio for a little while longer with the returning new Messiah, Nicholas Crenson, who is back home here. And he's talking about the season that was here, which helped also win his first singles championship in nearly 17 years at RCW World Underground title. Let's get ready for more comments here. Craven Raid says, I've been in his sharpshooter, but remember, I destroyed Darkfire. That made WC history. That one match got 1,100 plus views. We talked about here in the past. 1,100 plus views. It sure did. WC Heat YouTube. That's where you can watch it. Craven Raid says, Sean Jovi, let's see if you can survive the pain and suffering. And he also says, Sean Jovi is one worthy opponent. And yes, Winter Clash is going to be a hot ticket, but I have something over Jovi. You know, I want to leave aside Jovi and Rage for a second. I want to ask you a question, sir, if you don't mind. Now, you don't have to answer it. You can say nothing, you can say something, or you can in between. You can plead the fifth if you want. But I want to ask you this question because, you know, obviously last night we saw the IMF and a slew of stars promoting Winter Clash. It was one of the most viewed shows in recent Sportswire Radio memory, and people were talking about it. People are still talking about what happened between Soldier GP, the popular heel monster, the reigning defending IMF World Champion, and the C. People saw Omen Black, the boogeyman of the Midwest, basically personally go at it with Damian Saint. But, you know, I was wondering, though, what is your opinion on this show? Because I would have thought after seeing you in IMF shows that you would definitely be advertised on this card. So you don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. I mean, does it slight you, though, that the likes of Sean Jovi and Craven Rage are booked on this card? Does it slight you that other people from other states are booked and advertised? But where is Nicholas Crenson, the man who brings out ratings, the man who brings out the best in people? The man who called Craven Rage was going to lose his title. The man who called Sean Jovi would have this new era. The man that basically called Kodak Kid would take the title from Craven Rage. The man who's really been spot on the money the whole year. Does this bother you that you're not even basically talked about or even thought of in this IMF first ever winter class show?
No, not really, because I keep in touch with management over in any promotion, and there is something planned. It's not announced yet, but when I was given this opportunity, I had to take it, and you might notice something in a little while when you figure out when it does get out there that what I'm going to be doing at Winter Clash.
Okay. Well, you know what? Obviously, I'll look forward to seeing you as a spectator there. I'll certainly look forward to seeing you and getting that analysis and telling us how that card went. It's a phenomenal card, by the way. You've got a slew of great matches there. And obviously, Jovi and Rage is going to be a huge part of that. We saw Prince of Chia and Mephisto for Jovi's intergalactic title with Ace Diamond there, the eyes of pro wrestling. We saw that whole tag team situation between the Midwest Express and the Dirty Haters, and then we saw the Foundation there. We saw Omen Black, of course, the Boogeyman of the Midwest. It's his show. He's squaring off with Matthew Forsaken and Damian Saint, Soldier GP, and also squaring off with the C. I mean, just a phenomenal card. We've even got guys from ROEW squaring off against each other, but that's here nor there. I want to come back to Vector, and I want to come back to Tyler Ark for a second. I promised to bring him up. And Tyler Ark, to me, it seems like you've been taking him under your wing this season. And if you would have asked me last year, right, Tyler Ark, and I would have laughed, I would have said Tyler Ark would have been a punchline, would have been a joke, right? But if there's one person that I take away from that I actually think could have a big season in 24, it's the guy that you've been molding and mentoring, kind of like the way Dean Olmark mentored Tony Storm and led Tony Storm to become a pro wrestler and took the AEW title. And Tyler Ark, I mean, do you feel that a way that Tyler Ark is poised for a big 24 and we've really seen some rapid growth from him really due to your lead?
He's been improving. He's improved a good bit especially towards the end of the season. As for 2024, that all depends. Like I said, you can have good moments, but it's up to you to keep that momentum going. And and Tyler has made strides. He's made little strides here and there. He has improved. He just has to, listen and keep taking the advice that'll help him improve more. And that's not just from me and being in Vector. That's from all of the four pillars of WCE. Because you can learn something from James Marshall. You can learn something from Sean Jovi. You can learn something from me. And as much as I hate to say it, you learn something from Craven Rage.
I was waiting for you to say it that way. I was like waiting for that moment. And I was like, it's going to be tough for him to say it. It's going to be tough for him to pull it out of his mouth. And you did there.
But I think he has the potential to do good things. It's the one thing that I think I helped him with this year is getting him to get out of his own head. Because that's the downfall of anybody in wrestling is when you're stuck in your own head.
We spoke about it with you quite a bit over this season. Any wrestler we speak with, it's the mind games. Listen, when we spoke about a company in Tennessee a few days ago, we had the Atomic freaking Titan, and we had Jacob Young, who used to go through different names, and Joshua Allen. What were we speaking about? Mind games. The mind games, and who is Jacob Young was supposed to be basically saying he controls the Atomic freaking Titan, and he made him do things. So, yes, you're right that mind games are a big part of things in this sport, and maybe Tyler is on a path that could maybe propel him to being a legitimate threat in 2024. And if you would have told me this at this time last year, I would have laughed. But realistically speaking, he's everybody would have. But now I think that he's right there. He's there. Maybe not quite there, but he's just about there.
I think eventually I'm going to have to test him.
What do you mean by testing him there, sir?
I got to see how much he's actually learned.
Oh, so we'll have to find out next season then. Let me ask you a question. Obviously, you had an interesting season. Overall, how do you feel this season went for you?
Honestly, and this is not necessarily with wins and losses and everything. Honestly, this is probably my favorite year in wrestling that I've ever done.
Why. Tell me why.
This felt like something I've been missing all my life. Like, even when I was wrestling back in the early 2000s and 10s, this season brought me one. Yes, I won my first title in 17 years. Woo! But it has brought me some of my best matches. Like, my matches with Jovi, my, match with Adonis at Showdown in the Yard. Another one I could think of is the three-way with Kodak and Jason Myers. The match with Jason Myers, that tag team match in which I turned on Jovi and Darkfire against the Foundation.
That's a very memorable one in WC history. That is a memorable one.
And it's because, here's the thing, and this is kind of a fourth wall break, but wrestling should be fun. It shouldn't be, oh, I'm worried about making money. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. Don't worry about the money. Worry about having fun. Because here's the thing. If you aren't having fun, it doesn't matter how good you are. People aren't stupid, and they can tell.
I'm glad you said that, and I'm going to break the fourth wall for a second, if you don't mind, because you said something interesting, and I want to go on to it, because I do think that when I cover, let's say, those in the yard or those that might be underground, and I know in XCW, Fletch uses semi-pro, whatever it is, right? I feel in a lot of ways more fun, and I think the people that wrestle appreciate those moments more than when, how can I put this, when I cover the indie guys or the pro guys in the UK, because I feel like everybody's worried about, well, I don't want to offend this person, or, well, I want to get booked. And, well, I want to make sure that I can get my gas money or whatever it might be. Whereas I think here, and I think an example of this is that picture a couple of months ago, if I could say it, breaking the fourth wall, where everybody from IMF and WC took that picture. We really have never got a chance to speak about that because WC kind of had this embargo for a while on Sportswire, but now to basically that we're back here, I felt in a lot of ways that's where I feel my job actually was successful. It may not have been in views, subscribers, and anything else, but the fact that seeing people from two different places that would never have existed, frankly, if it wasn't for here, to take a photo and to have a moment or a day in time, I think that's a really special moment. And I don't think that could have been achieved when I cover the British independent wrestling scene or when I have professional or independent wrestlers across the country. And I kind of think that was a pretty cool moment. How did you feel?
I felt that like both anytime we've done stuff with IMF, I thought it was wonderful because, as you put it, it's bringing people together.
That's it.
And here's the thing, you've got those people in the indies that are detractors of backyard wrestling.
I addressed it last. I hope that if you're a yarder, I hope that even if you don't like me in character or if you don't watch my shows all the time, I hope that if you're a yarder out there or an undergrounder, that you basically appreciated what I did for you yesterday. Because I basically called out wrestlers that were piling on backyarders. That's the bottom line.
Here's the irony of that. A lot of these indie guys are are former
Former
yarders.
yarders. And I was explaining that to the lovely Zena yesterday. She asked me, she said, why did you go after the pro wrestlers yesterday? Don't they come on your show? I said, yes, but here's why I did that, because there's a lot of wrestlers that put themselves on the high and mighty, and they look down on backyard or underground wrestlers, when the truth is that either A, they wish that they had the following of those wrestlers, or B, they actually secretly were yarders and don't want to admit it because they're afraid of no longer getting booked. Bottom line.
Part of it, but here's the thing. I'm going to say this, and I actually made this. I had a conversation with somebody a while back when discussing backyard wrestling. I said backyard wrestling is the punk rock genre of wrestling.
Yeah, I could the grittiness, the rawness. Yeah, I think that I can see that. Okay,
And
I'll give you that.
every genre you're gonna get good stuff, and you're gonna get terrible stuff. Terrible stuff is indies who rely on booking guest stars all the time.
Right, or basically those people get booked in the same thing, or it's the same. Or I'm going to say this here, and you can say nothing on it. Or it's in certain promotions in certain places that I cover on Sportswire, where it's like the same 8 people that get booked in every promotion, and it's the same outcome and the same finish. And it's basically those people went in the business for themselves, and those people operate in a clique, and those people are BSers.
Pretty much. Yeah, that is kind of true. Like, it's either
it's
one or
true.
the other.
I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm not a pro wrestler. I'm not a wrestler like you or even anyway, but I've interviewed and I know enough about this stuff that I can see right through it. And also I worked in the political world, so I obviously see all through it.
You got your people who are just going to always, be stuck in a past mindset.
Absolutely.
And that, backyard wrestling is this thing to just be lauded against and hated and just, oh, it's terrible. It's horrible. Backyard wrestling at one point is probably the biggest thing in wrestling, around the world, because there probably at some point there was more backyard wrestling events than when there were indies. Not all of them good, but there were a good bit.
Listen, I give the example all the time. Do you go when you watch? You're at a park, right? And somebody's playing a pickup basketball game. Do you pile on those people for playing pickup basketball? They're not professional basketball players. Do you go and pile if you still have them where you live? If you go to a baseball diamond, a Sunday morning baseball or softball game, do you go pile on those people and say, well, they're not pro ball players? You don't do that. If somebody's playing flag football in a park, do you say, well, they're not NFL football players, they're not pro football players? To me, it's the same thing. If a wrestler's going into in their property, their place, and they want to put a ring up or a trampoline or whatever it might be that they want to do something, and what's wrong with that?
It's also the mindset of, that whole dead mindset of pay your dues. Here's the thing. You know how easy it is to get all the information you need to actually train. Like, actually train to be a wrestler. Like, you can, yes, going to somebody who's an expert does help, but
it's not 40 years ago, though, where you basically had to go somewhere and it's like, okay, it's off the side of the road. Nobody knows about it. It's almost like a closed circuit TV years ago before you had like pay-per-view. It's not like that. You can just go on Instagram, go on Facebook, look up somebody. They have a wrestling school. You show up, you pay $2,000 out of your pocket, your hard-earned money, and you go out and learn. That's it. Simple as that.
Or if you're lucky enough that you know somebody who has a ring or have a ring, you can just go and look up videos on how to do stuff.
Right. The point is, to me, it's not like, I don't want to put it like underground organized crime was, 50, 60, 100 years ago. But the point is that if you want to be a wrestler, you want to learn to take a bump, there's plenty of ways, plenty of avenues now in 2023 going into 24 to do it. So listen, and that's why I wanted to, not to get on my soapbox, but I did in a way. I'm glad that you brought it up. And I just want to go back to WC for the rest of the show. IMF. That's
there's
why.
one last thing I want to mention here.
I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to tie it in. Go ahead.
if you want to go get trained, do it. Go through all the training and all that stuff. That's wonderful. There's a female wrestler who has started a journey. It's been doing on a journey training in the UK for a while, and I've been kind of following her on YouTube and
Well, who
TikTok.
is it? I probably know them.
Succubus.
Yeah, I think I heard of her.
Yeah, I've been following her, and like that's what it is you can get trained any way you want to. It's at the end of the day, wrestling is supposed to be fun.
It is, and that's why, to me, what the IMFWC moment, that moment where you guys all had that photo together, to me, it was, when I saw that moment, that's what wrestling is all about. It's not about who wins, who loses. It's not about this, and that. And in a small way, I think in the 5 years that I'm doing this was one of the more special moments, because, not to take full credit for it, but a lot of that happened here. So the fact that you guys were together, I think it really was a special moment. And then the IMF having their first live show and seeing WCA talent, ROEW talent, that happened because of here. Didn't happen because of anywhere else. It's because of here. I think of all the different companies that know each other. I saw Alliance Wrestling and ROEW. That happened here. I see what's happened with ROEW and IMF. That happened here. Obviously, WC and IMF. That happened here. I see XCW and IMF. That happened here. I see countless other examples of places that it happened here. Here. So the fact that moment, I think, does show that this was a great season. But if you had one or two moments this season for you that you look back on and you were most fond, what were they?
The two moments that I look back on most fondly: Ring of Destruction, me and Jovi. Not not winning the match. The moment that I look back on fondly is the moment where we're on the outside, he sets up a chair, tells me to take a seat, and we then proceed to slap the living hell out of each other.
I remember it was.
I wanted Jovi to stop holding back. That is the one thing Sean was notorious for the past couple of years, is that he held back, and
we saw it here on this show. Listen, remember when Soldier was going after him time after time, and Jovi was kind of like, he was laid back. He was just standing there, taking it. And now he's not anymore.
Yeah, verbally, like, yes, that's one thing, but where I was more concerned was physically. And I got him to break out of that mold, and he proceeded to have probably the best match in WCE history with James Marshall.
I think that there was a lot of reasons inside the ring, outside the ring, what that meant to Jovi's career, where we are. But I definitely agree with you on all of that. We got another about 10 or 15 more minutes here with Nicholas Crenson, the new Messiah. He is the man behind Vector. He was the RCW Underground World Champion this year in WC. If you want to follow and support Nicholas Crenson, you can do that here in a number of different platforms, including TikTok, YouTube, Facebook at Nicholas Crenson. Also check him out on Threads and Instagram at Endiku with all spaces after each letter. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling. Okay, as we're coming to the end of the show here, and obviously it's good to have you back home, and it's good to have more WC coverage once again. I did want to ask you if you had any, for now, words for Darkfire going into this offseason that he has to sit on and think about over these next couple of months, what would they be?
Oh, it's simple. Darkfire, you can't touch me. I can't touch you until we have that match. But remember, that contract only says we can't touch each other. So think about that, buddy.
Interesting. The mind games being played. possibly that could certainly be possibly the mind games being played, and Darkfire has to sit on that here for 4 long months. Darkfire, maybe you know what, Nicholas Crenson, maybe you are on to something there. And let me ask you then, if I could ask, which I actually will, because I'm going to do it anyway. It doesn't make a difference. Would you like to see Vector grow? I mean, I've asked you this before, but are you actively recruiting for new Vector talent?
Sometimes, like,
So,
I right now I kind of have it on a bit of a back burner because right now we are waiting for that match to happen.
right, I understand. You have to focus on the next 4 months and get ready and train and obviously get ready and certainly watch the tape and certainly focus on getting yourself in that mindset to reclaim the RCW title and make sure that Darkfire stays as only a 5-time champion. You keep that championship in your possession once again. So I could certainly understand those things here. But, let me ask you one slight detour question off you. Going back to Craven Rage, this backyard nightmare, this once ruler of the WC yard who was basically a lampoon. He was joked upon. He was basically made as a punchline here on Sportswire over the past few months. I mean, I guess we'll see Craven Rage and Omen Black in the same locker room again, right? Coming up in 2 weeks from now. You think
Oh,
I wanted to ask you about that. Obviously, these gentlemen are occupied, but do you think that Mr. Black actually was the one that succeeded more so than you in getting in the head of Craven Rage? Because, I mean, Omen Black really, I mean, he says he's the boogeyman of the Midwest, and Craven Rage claims he's this nightmare, but boogeymen usually tend to be a lot more scarier than nightmares, from what I remember and recall, no?
here's the thing. You could say that here and there. I wasn't trying to necessarily get in Craven's heads. I was just spitting straight truth. He was getting cocky. And, yes, you can have boogeymen, but you can also have a Baba Yaga.
Oh, Baba Yaga there. Somebody has a John Wick reference there. The Baba Yaga. But I'm wearing my John Wick shirt. By the way, for those that are watching, I actually saw John Wick 5 times in the movie theater. Okay, okay, so I'm going to leave that thought then on Black and Craven Rage because obviously those two, I have no doubt, are coming back to Sportswire. And this is Omen show. And Craven Rage, something tells me here, is going to be addressed in Sportswire very, very soon. And something tells me you'll be tuned in here. So before I get to closing thoughts here, and obviously we have spoke about a lot. We spoke about the recent wins over Ray Oos and Drake Silverwolf. We talked about this situation with Darkfire where we still are kind of in limbo, but maybe you've convinced me, you've played the mind games on me that you've got the momentum rather than Darkfire because you've wrestled recently, you've got the wins, and he's got to think about this whole situation here. So is there any Jump in, jump in.
Another reason why I might have a little bit of an edge over Darkfire. I've never lost the last man standing match. I've had a draw, but I've never lost one. And look at the people, like I drawed with Jason Myers, yes, but look at the people who I've beaten in last man standing matches. James Marshall,
Impressive.
JDT.
He doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, listen, he couldn't compete with WC. He couldn't cut the mustard here. I mean, that shows you that this is why you want to support WC. So good point. Give you that.
But I'm not dumb enough to think that I have all the momentum because I know I'm going to bring something out of him. So when that match finally happens, it's going to be very, very interesting to see.
Okay, you know what? I think that Nicholas Crenson, you're going to always be somebody that we watch here on Sportswire, and especially these next coming weeks. And I want to remind people one more time, December the 19th, that'll be 2 weeks from Tuesday, Kodak Kid, the picture of perfection, in his first words as the WC All-Out Champion, is back live. Sportswire Radio. This is Kodak Kid's first appearance in almost, I believe, a year. It's been almost a year since we've had Kodak Kid on this show. And he's coming back to address this whole situation. He's going to address Craven Rage. He's going to address WCE. He's going to address everything that he wants. The champ is here live, 9:30. That is a must-watch, a must-listen on sportswireradio.org. Also, our link above on YouTube. Also, WC Heat on all platforms, and especially WC Heat on YouTube, where they just also passed not too long ago 500 subscribers. So congratulations to Wrestling Championship Entertainment, 529 subscribers. I remember when WC first came onto Sportswire, and it was a little over 200 subscribers. So think about that. We went from a little over 200 to 529. We've had shows and matches with thousands and thousands of views. We've had TikTok rated matches that are 7s, 8s, near perfect scores. This is how far this company has come. This company is going to grow even further in the next months and years. So stay tuned. Before I get to closing thoughts, is there anything else that you want to say to those that are listening and watching, who are Sportswire listeners, fans, and anybody else in WC?
Yeah, like you said, you're going to have Kodak on next week, and I'm going to tell you this. Question from me is, ask him how his wrist's doing.
I'll ask him. I mean, am I allowed to ask him?
You can. But anyway, next season is going to be even bigger than this one. And this was our biggest season yet. But next season, you are going to see some of the best matches in WC history come with full fury. Because, like we said, we are going to, like I said, WC, eventually we're going to kick that season off kick it off, or at some point we're going to have me and Darkfire last man.
I think that has to be the main event, by the way. I think because of the personal animosity, I think because of the history between you two, I think because of everything where this situation should have happened, I believe on 2 different occasions, it didn't.
Both, and here's a little pull back the curtain thing. When that was supposed to be the main event for both shows that it was scheduled for.
Well, that's my point. That's my point.
But, things happen, but now people get to... Now it's going to be the whole thing of the anticipation killing people.
Well, I'll tell you what, what I'm hoping for real quick before I get to closing thoughts. Maybe somehow we'll get like a rather super mild winter, and maybe somehow we'll get like 70 degrees in February or something like that.
Oh, God. Don't... we could. I think we're supposed to have like an El Nino pattern this year.
Yes, I read that here. I read the same thing, and it was telling us that it's supposed to be above mild weather temperatures through winter. But then they said, well, we'll have these periods of snow. So I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe if we're lucky, maybe we will get a warm winter. But you never know.
Or early spring. Though I hope we never get like 2018 here in Wisconsin, because April 2018, we literally had a blizzard.
Well, I mean, to be fair, in New York, we do get like days that are like 35 degrees, 40 degrees in April. So, I mean, you never know. At this point, I tell people all the time, I just keep everything in the closet at this point. I don't put anything away, because you never know when you might need it. So, that's kind of how I feel.
Who knows? Maybe at some point we'll find a building. We can actually, maybe at some point WC will management or somebody will get us a building.
Listen, I'll tell you this before we get to closing thoughts. That company in Shelbyville, they go to a gym a few months of the year. That company in Tennessee, they're in a building a few months of the year. That company in Maryland, DBW, they're now permanently in a building. So you know what? You never know. And those people in Iowa who Rage and Jovi are going to be wrestling for, they're in a building in 2 weeks from now. So you know what? You can never say never. And even that company in Michigan, they're in a building. So never say never.
You mentioned all these different areas, and yes, I will be at IMF Winter Clash. But, one last thing I want to say is next year I'm planning on expanding my horizons.
Oh, you're expanding your horizons. Interesting. Do you mean maybe your moveset? Do you mean maybe your abilities in the ring? Maybe names you might have? You call yourself, you're the Psycho Wolf, the new Messiah? What do you mean by that?
Let's just say Iowa was pretty fun. And let's just say Indiana and Michigan look very, very tasty.
Well, Indiana, that could certainly be a very, very interesting spot because Indiana and Wisconsin aren't
Plus,
far away from each
not
other.
to not to also forget this here. Plus there is somebody I need to meet in Tennessee.
Well, you know what? That's certainly something that you're going to want to stay tuned for. And in the meantime, I want people to support WCE Nicholas Crenson. Nicholas Crenson in the links below. WC Heat on YouTube, Facebook, WCHeat.com. And Kodak Kid, the picture of perfection. His first words is the WC All Out Champion, Tuesday, December the 19th. And you very well may see coverage in WC before that. Stay tuned for details coming up in the coming days and hours. I promise you, we're going to have a full season, off-season coverage of WC is ahead here on Sportswire Radio. Nicholas Crenson will certainly play a big part of it. I want to give you the floor now, my friend. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? Definitely.
Uh
Let's hope you don't do this again in 3 months from now. Let's hope you have a lot shorter time from when you next.
definitely. Yes, definitely check out WC at WCE Heat. Check out Jovi's vlog, RCW Rules. Check out my channel at Nicholas Crenson and my TikTok. I upload my matches every now and then on there. Right now, I think I got last season's all loaded up on there. But also, there's a couple other things I kind of want to plug here because they are
Sure.
freaking amazing. If you like history, go check out the History of Everything podcast. It is
Okay.
amazing.
Okay.
And then
Absolutely.
the other thing I want to plug here is well, I'm gonna plug that one wrestler I mentioned again. Go check out Succubus. She is doing amazing, and she that is watching a journey like that is just awe-inspiring.
Yeah, there was just a wrestler, real quick, female wrestler in the UK, Harley Hudson, who I've covered for a while and won the when Impact went into the UK. She had won something, I believe. I forget what it was. It was something related to the women's division in Impact Wrestling. She won something which is supposed to help her down the road. It was at a house show, whatever it was. So anybody on a journey, I always want to check out those things, and I'm always looking forward to some of the things you're going to be up to, and we'll certainly let people tune into all those things. And yeah, TikTok, I got to get on TikTok. Everybody keeps telling me I got to do TikTok. I'm on Threads instead of TikTok, but maybe in the next coming weeks, I'll be on TikTok. But we have everything else out there. But I want people to follow you, especially in all those great platforms, especially YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Nicholas Crenson, Instagram, Threads, Endiku with little spaces in between. WC Heat on Facebook, YouTube, WCHeat.com, Sean Jovi's Discord channel. I want people to go out and join that. If you're a wrestling fan, wrestler, anything else in between, join that. It's a supportive, collaborative community for anybody that wants to make a difference and just enjoy what everybody in this sport tries to do to make a difference in the people around them. Thank you for coming on. I certainly, like I said, I stress this. I hope you'll come on a lot shorter than the last 3 month delay. Usually we're on here every month. We had to wait 3 months for this. It was well worth the wait, but let's hope that you come on in a lot shorter time. I know we'll have a lot to talk about. I have a real strong feeling on that. And I definitely look forward to seeing you soon. And congratulations. I still think a successful season. And you got a lot for us to ponder about, and we'll have to say to be continued on all of that, especially if you reclaim that RCW Underground title from Mr. Darkfire.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the new Messiah, Nicholas Crenson, the man behind Vector. He was the RCW World Underground Heavyweight Champion this season. He will get another shot at that at the start of WC's next season, coming up their fourth season, starting in sometime 2024. Nicholas Crenson finished his season successfully with victories at Fighter Fight 3 in chapters 1 and 2 over Ray Oos and also Drake Silverworth with convincing victories here. So he certainly has all the momentum in the world to reclaim his second singles championship in 18 years. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of world wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. If you're on sportswireradio.org, you're also on Twitter and YouTube. I will be back Monday night with Angel Santiago, the TF Crew World Underground Champion. I will potentially be here tomorrow. Stay tuned for an announcement on that. And also Tuesday, double duty, the legendary Dean Olmark to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. 12 o'clock Eastern Time, Big Tex of DBW, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And Wednesday, speaking of Indiana, the commentator for XCW Shelbyville, Mr. Blackheart himself, their 2022 Wrestler of the Year. Until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.